Hi, this is Zoe Tant, the Tantalising Stamper, and today I'm going to show you how to do some watercolour stamping using various stamps. So various, I've forgotten their names. Using the Natural Botanicals stamp set and painted stripes, and I will also be using the Notes of Texture dies to add this little bit of extra detail, and the worn Exposed Brick embossing folder. Let's get started. I've got a piece of Fluid 100 watercolour paper, and I've got the painted stripes stamp, and you'll see I've just put it on my craft table. And what I'm going to do is add first of all some pool party ink to it, just to ink it. So the whole point of watercolour stamping is that you add the ink to your stamp and then spritz it with water to sort of make it a bit wishy-washy and a bit more watercoloury, if that makes sense. So here's my water spritzer, and it literally has tap water in it. So I'm going to give it a good spritz, and then I'm going to put my piece of watercolour paper onto it and just let that take up the ink and the water. Give it a nice rub. And then I'm going to let that dry naturally, because then the colours stay probably best, I think. But if you want it a bit paler, you could dab it with kitchen towel, or indeed you can dry it with your heat tool. So I'm going to leave that to dry, and then the next piece that I want to do with the same stamp is a piece of Lost Lagoon card, and I'm going to do the same, but this time I'm going to add Lost Lagoon ink, and because that's a darker shade, I don't need to worry about cleaning it in between. I can just dab this extra ink on. Try not to get lines by moving my ink pad around. We close that up so we don't get water in it, and then again I'm going to spritz it with just water. Now this time I'm going to put the Lost Lagoon straight on it. This is obviously just normal cardstock, so I don't want it to get too wet, so I probably won't leave it as long. I shall just rub it over like that down the edges and then take it off. And again, you can see it's quite inky, but it will fade as it dries, and I'm going to let that dry while I do some other bits and pieces, like clean my stamp. So the next thing is to take another piece of Lost Lagoon, and again this time I'm going to use the ink on my embossing folder. And it's up to you which way you want to do it, but I'm going to add it like this, and because I want the sort of not grungy but shabby chic, I suppose, for want of a better word, type of effect, I'm just going to put that down like where it is, put the card on it, and then close the folder, and then I shall pop that through my cut and emboss machine. So with the cut and emboss machine, I've got the main plate, nothing else. I've got the grey plate, and because it's a 3D embossing folder, that's all I've got. So I'm going to put that in with the fold going through it first, and the grey plate on top. I'll take that extra bit of card off. And you put the fold through first to put the least pressure on it, so that it doesn't crack it. And I'm going to put it through again because I want to be sure that it's embossed it well and it takes off all the ink. A little piece of paper doesn't want to disappear. We'll donate it to the floor space for now. And then we can open this, and we've got that. So a little bit more subtle this time. than my original card. We'll put that out of the way. And again, we'll just let that dry and see how that goes. I think possibly on my other one, I think I spritzed that as well, so it made it even more inky. But it just shows you can create different effects by doing different things, and none are right and none are wrong. So, or should I say, they're all right and not wrong. I've got my base card, and with my Lost Lagoon marker pen, I'm just going to take the lid off. You'll see that you've got a wide, thick white stripe and a narrow white stripe. So this is for the brush end and this is for the bullet end. And the new pens now have a thicker nib, more solid nib, which is great. But this one is still a super brush as well. I'm just going to pop it in the lid and then flick ink onto my card to get some splatters around the edge, just for a bit of extra detail. Depends how big the splatters are and how inky your pen is and how much you flick it. So you can probably just about see that, hopefully. That can then go to one side. And then I will just show you, I've prepped in advance. I did the same, used the same stamp, the painted stripes, on some two-tone Fresh Freesia with tone on tone. So I used Fresh Freesia ink, stamped it with a bit of spritzing beforehand, and then I've just torn around the edges just to reveal the white. And then I ran this over the stamp when it still had some of the leftover water and ink on, just to pick up odd bits on the white, so it's not quite so harsh. That's going to be a piece, like not a belly band, but a piece that goes across the middle on my card. So let's see if this is dry, and it looks like it probably is. So I'm now going to use the Stylish Shapes to die cut a circle from here. So I quite like the large circle, so I'm going to use that. And this time we need some slightly different plates. So we need to put our thin layer on, and we also need our bottom cutting plate. Oops, preferably not on the floor for the other one. And then you can choose where you want your circle, or you could cut several circles, depending on what else you want to do with it. If you cut several at the same time, you've got other card options available. I'll move that out of the way. Put the die safe, and we've got that. This one, I'm going to use the rectangle. I'm going to cut this first of all to go underneath it, to be, let's go for 10, I think, or by 14.3. We can test that out on our, yeah, that's a bit larger. I think I might take a little bit more off, another ½ centimetre maybe on each side. There we go. And then otherwise we don't see the splatters that we've created. And that goes there. And then this we're going to die cut one, oops, like this. But I'm just showing for the size it's going to fit on there as a layer, so I'm going to die cut that. So same plates as before for the cutting. little bit of an arm workout, and we can keep that. We could keep that piece as a frame, just trim it up to even it off if we wanted to. But we've got our piece that we really want. A little hexagon, escapee. So these are going to build up in layers like this. And then the purple fresh freesia that I mentioned earlier, I'm going to put on there. But the next part is to do a little bit more stamping on here using the natural Botanicals. And I think I will stick with the same stamp, because I have it here ready. And I also have some markers just in case I want to add a bit more colour. That the Lost Lagoon, and this set is called a reversible, so you can stamp and get the detailed image on these, but you can also peel them off your block carefully so as not to tear off your stem or anything, flip them over, and then you can use the solid, and that's how I'm going to put in some colour. So I'm going to start off by colouring this with, actually I think I'll use the ink pad first. So I'm going to just tap around this stem in the centre to get the ink on the bits I want. But then I can add the Lost Lagoon to the stem, but I can also use a blending pen with blending that comes with blending fluid in, but I can just make sure that this is clean and didn't get any of the purple on it, and then with it on a piece of scratch you can just get off any ink that it's taken up, and then use your Stampin Write markers to add colour for the stem. I want plenty of ink because I'm going to spritz this just like I've done all the other stamps for this card. And I'm also going to add a little bit, in fact I'm going to go, this is Blackberry Bliss that I've got here now, and actually I'm going to do that as well. So having gone to a lot of trouble with the ink pad, but we'll add this. But we're then going to spritz the stamp, and it's probably best to do it not on all your other stuff. So if I just show you one spritz, probably like that, that's possibly enough. And you can see that's a little bit damp, but will bleed and come together. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm not going to worry that it has got water on, because it's going to have more water on. So it will just enhance the watercolour effect. Bring back my, now I can see I've gone over a bit, so I'm going to take off the Blackberry Bliss. Clean it off that way, and then very carefully just add this colour, and then a light spritz, and we can stamp that onto there. And again, you can see it's gone watercoloury. Now, you could just leave it like that. I think it looks perfectly fine. But I'm also going to show you the reversible side. And this is where I do need to use the fresh freesia. Because I'm just going to ink up the back. So, like that. I'm not going to worry about the stem this time, but I am going to obviously clean off the bit that is the stem. And again, spritz it. And then I can go over that and it will fill it in the colour on the back of that. So we'll do it again, and on the second one I think I might spritz it a little bit more just to get a difference. Again, take off the bit that I don't want, clean off my blending brush, and then spritz it a bit more heavily and add that. And that's coloured it even more. So you get that sort of watercolour effect. In fact, I might just go over that one again. We'll just dry it off with a dry wipe. Let's see if we can add a little bit more to that one. Take off anything that we don't want. Spritz it. There. But you can see it's creating that nice little watercolour effect. It's run a little bit here, but because you're doing watercolour, it doesn't matter. If you're a bit of a precise person, you may struggle with this one. I want to add some leaves. I think this time I might add... no, I think I'll stick with the small one because I think otherwise it'll be too much. So I'm going to use the... I'm going to spritz them, but I'm just going to use the outline for this darker colour, and I want a little bit of detail, so I don't want it to disappear into a melee. That one we can go over with. I spritz again. Oops. Preferably at the stamp and not at the mid-air. We'll come down with that one a little bit and dry it off, and then we use the reversible side. You might find that your stamp is still a bit damp, so it might be easier to turn your block over and then reverse the stamp, and then we want to spritz. And that's enough, I think. Otherwise we'll lose all the detail. So that ideally you would leave to dry now before adding to your card. Now you can see what happened on my previous one. Now on this one I actually used ordinary white card, and it's got a similar but slightly different effect. And for this one I have one that I prepared earlier. And again, I added more colour to that one. So again, it's personal choice. You can decide what you want. Once this is dry, if you do want more detail, then you can go over with your stamp over the top and just add a little bit of darker pen via using one of the markers to get that detail. And you can probably see on this, I don't know with the light, I also, once it was dry, added some Wink of Stella for a bit of sparkle and light and shade. But we'll make up the card using that one. So we added some splatter with the pens, and now we're going to add some seal to adhere it onto the card base. I think I might put it that way actually. I think I like how that goes. Oops. Perhaps not quite there. That was lucky. You can also breathe sometimes if you haven't pushed it down. Just your warm air of your breath will help you separate the two. Pop that on there. And then we've got this one. which we'll use some sticky pads on, I think. New sheet, so they don't want to come off. Safety in numbers. I've lost my take-a tool somewhere. Take those off and maybe go for one in the middle for good luck. And again, you can choose which way you think it looks best. These, I think I will pop one of these at the very edge, and the very edge, a little bit of seal in the middle to hold it down. So, and then our flowers, we can pop some. If we put two at the top and one at the bottom, we can straddle the fresh freesia stripy base. Maybe we put this one in the middle as opposed to one side, like that. Now on this one I use some, I think it's retired Lost Lagoon ribbon that I cut in half and then shredded some of the pieces and then tied a bow with the largest piece that was left and some of the shredded bits. I've added some rhinestones. And then this one, I'm not going to add a bow, I'm going to add a sentiment that I've put aside from the Greetings for All. And this I will pop on some glue dots, I think. Oh, what not to do. Let's see if we can get that back together. Maybe if we trim it. Aha. We can do that instead. Peel it off my finger. This time I need another one. Bit more careful this time. There we go. Wow, that saved the day, didn't it? And then I think I will just grab another glue dot on the end of my scissors to put under there. I don't think that caught very well. There we go. And the final touch with a little bit of wet glue. I'm going to put ideally, I would like my take-a tool, so I'm going to find that if I can. I've found it. Because I'm going to use the putty to position where I might put these gems. Sorry, not gems, little butterflies or little bees. Tiny bee trinkets, that's what they're called. Oops. So I think somewhere like that is probably going to be just perfect. We want little dots of glue, but then we can use the putty to put best made plans. Maybe I need to refresh my putty. So I've taken off the dead bit. I just have to wind a little bit more through. we go. And that one we can put, ooh. Oh my, I'm not having luck with this today. There we go. And these are really cute. You get 40 in a packet and they'll last you ages. You may not want to put so many on as me, but I quite like them. And one of the benefits of being a demo is you can get your discount on them, so you can afford to be frivolous. So there we go. 2 little cards, similar but different, and that one's drying out quite nicely for another card later. So don't forget to look at everybody in the blog hop. If you're in the UK and don't have a demonstrator, then please do take a look at zoetant.stampinup.net and visit my YouTube channel, which you'll find via this video. I'd love you to subscribe so that I do more videos. Thanks very much for your support. Cheers. Bye bye now.